Have you seen this on Netflix, The Man with 1,000 Kids? I had the distinct pleasure of watching this show over the weekend, and my flabber was gasted. And then I started thinking, because what else do I do, about the estate planning components of something like this. So if you aren't aware, this guy, let's just call him JJM, because I don't actually even want to use his full name because he doesn't deserve it. So he's this guy in the Netherlands, and for 10 plus years, this guy has been a serial sperm donor, both to sperm banks and in private sperm donations to families all over the world. So he's from the Netherlands, started in the Netherlands, and then expanded out all over Europe, and then internationally off of the continent. So the whole premise of this docu-series, it's a short series, I think it's like 3 or 4 episodes. It's talking about him, and it's interviewing families that have been victims of him. Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen this and you don't want to know what happened, just save this, come back to it later, scroll on, whatever. But what the premise of this documentary is, it's talking about how that guy has donated his sperm so prolifically that there are estimates that there are 1,000 to 3,000 children, and the full scope is unknown because there is no central database for sperm donation to track this. But they're estimating that they have identified at least 600, closer to 1,000, but it could be as many as 3,000 children worldwide are the children of this man. So what the documentary does is it goes through and it interviews quite a few number of families about, how did they get connected with him? What was the experience like? How did they even figure out that this was a problem? And then what did they do about it? And the what they did about it part was actually really incredibly fascinating on the legal side, because this is taking place again. And for context, like, hello, we're here, I'm in California. This person was operating primarily out of Europe, specifically in Netherlands. And the families that they were interviewing were primarily in the Netherlands and then one couple in Australia. And on the legal side, they wanted to find a legal way to stop him from continuing to donate sperm. And if you're interested in that part, like, they had to file in The Hague. The court, after a lot of testimony, ordered that he is no longer allowed to donate sperm, and that if he is donating sperm, there's a $100,000 fine that will be assessed to him for each sperm donation, which sounds great on paper, but for enforcement purposes, like, how are they going to be able to enforce that, first of all? Because there is no central database for sperm donation. And he's doing both sperm bank donation under different names, lying on his application saying that he's not donating anywhere else. And he's also doing private donation. So, like, how would they actually be able to verify that he is ongoing after this order was entered saying that he can't donate sperm anymore? How are they actually going to enforce that? Because there are thousands of vials from him around the world. And some of those might not actually be used until later, and that was only effective as to him. That order didn't stop any of the cryobanks that are storing his sperm from continuing to use his sperm either. It's wild. It's wild, and it doesn't have just implications in the Netherlands. This is a worldwide issue. So why am I talking about this? Because by the end of watching this series, one of the concerns that these families have, which is a very valid concern, is unintentional incest, right? Especially because there are so many kids geographically located near each other. Like, in the Netherlands, it's a very small country. And in the Netherlands, there were hundreds of children that were born from the sperm from this man. They're concerned about, the incest that could potentially happen because these kids meet each other and they feel this connection and this chemistry with one another, which evidently is it's an actual documented scientific finding that people who grow up and have this shared genetic material can find that type of attraction, and that they have unintentionally engaged in incest. That's one issue. And I would love for the reproductive rights attorneys to hop onto this chat, because I'm seriously considering a different avenue, because this is just so interesting. But where my brain went immediately was the inheritance for these kids and for that man, because he is at the, like, I don't even want to do this, but like he is, if we're looking at it from an inheritance point of view, when he dies, if he hasn't done proper estate planning, and I don't know what the rules are in the Netherlands as far as inheritance, right? But let's pretend this is all happening here. Let's say he dies in California. Like, what's going to happen? If he doesn't have an estate plan that puts a circle around who is getting his estate, and whether, it doesn't even matter what's in the estate, right? Like, I don't care if he's got a dollar or if he's got $100 million. It doesn't matter, because the concept still is the same. Who inherits from him? Okay, in California, this is who would inherit from him. If he's unmarried and his parents are no longer alive and he has no siblings, right? He has thousands of children that could potentially inherit from him. And because I have no idea what was done as far as terminating potential parental rights from sperm donation, specifically for those who were conceived by private donation, if those families don't have some agreement that says what his paternal rights are, my brain hurts thinking about how are they going to deal with the inheritance rights or the potential inheritance rights, not only for him, but for all of these kids. Okay, so for him, he could potentially have a couple thousand kids inheriting from his estate if proper estate planning isn't done. So what about the kids? Because they're involved in this too, and their estate planning is going to need to be buckled up the second those kids freaking turn 18. And why? Because they're in the same situation that he's in. If something happens to one of those kids and they have siblings that are going to be the ones that are inheriting from their estate, right? It's not a spouse, it's not a parent, it's not their own children, it's their siblings that are going to inherit. They're going to have the same issue, is that if they die without an estate plan that puts a circle, a bubble around who they want to inherit from them, their siblings are going to be it. And in California, and when I practiced in Virginia, same thing. As long as you can prove lineage, and these kids, it's not even a remote situation. These are 50%, these are half siblings, right? They have the same biological father, different mothers. They have half siblings that will inherit, and it's potentially thousands of people that are going to inherit. And logistically, how do you stop that? Like, to what end will an estate planning attorney who has to probate one of those kids' estates have to go, especially with the knowledge knowing that that kid is part of this bigger pool of children? If they don't, how are they going to close a probate estate for one of those kids? And if you're on the side of TikTok that I'm on, like you're seeing this not only relating to this guy, but for donor conceived kids. There is a creator on the app who is a donor conceived child, and she's exposing the, there are no kind words to describe what she and her sibling set are going through because of the fraud that's committed by IVF and cryobanks and all of this industry for reproductive health. And her sibling Pod is going to have to deal with the same issues of estate planning. And when you know like how big this problem is, it's just wild to me that, and I don't know that anybody's actually talking about the estate planning inheritance component of having this type of issue come up. And I can't stop thinking about it. So if you're a reproductive rights attorney or you're an estate planning attorney and you want to get on this conversation, like, please duet this thing. Like, I want to hear the perspective from everybody. If you're an international attorney too, I want to hear too, specifically if you're in Europe and you're dealing with any of the fallout from this case for JJM. Like, I cannot wait to see what type of conversations that we can have about this.